Hello and welcome to the BitLemmas episode 10. I'm here with B Sovereign and Drew, and we are going to do a book review of The Right to Repair by Aaron Perzanowski. What's the point of the book? It's not to or how to fix gadgets. The point is ownership. If you buy something but you can't fix it, you don't fully own it. In the last 20 years, repair stopped being just screws and solder. Repair became a permission problem, software locks, account rules, server dependencies, and legal threats. In the next hour, we're going to review four counterintuitive truths. One, you can own the object but rent the function. Two, repair barriers are often the business model. Number three, law can act like digital rights management by scaring people away from repair. And number four, repair is market structure. Competition and trust are what decide what's possible. And we'll end with two short checklists, one for buyers and one for makers. So, on to our thesis of the book. Repair is part of real ownership. You can think about real ownership throughout the context of this book with these four verbs: use, keep or keeping the device, fixing, and reselling. We're going to dig into all of these multiple times. Modern devices add new choke points. What is a choke point? It is a place where it's a point of control where you as an owner can be excluded from the thing you think you own. The new or the modern devices, the new method for the choke point is the software that accompanies the device or the software if it is a software itself, and servers. We'll talk about this. There's a concept of server tethering. Companies steer you away from repair. How do they do that? Through design, pricing or economics, and policy or law. These are the three levers that we'll dig into. And the right to repair restores access. This movement restores access to parts or aftermarket parts, tools that you need to repair, information like manuals, and the permission. So it even tries to attack and provide approval and permission to you so that you can repair your device.
Yeah, I think one of my takeaways from this book, just to get started, is ownership used to be absolute, but now it's conditional, and that's what we'll probably dive into more into as we
Yeah,
go along.
absolutely. I mean, it's firmly in the fact of like if you can't fix it, you don't fully own it. That's truly the core of it. It's it's like locking yourself into basically a control system as well. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
I
like
mean,
a rights issue too, right? Like it's not
yeah,
just technical issues; it's a rights to be able to fix stuff that you particularly They say you own it, but you don't truly own it if you can't fix it.
absolutely.
That's right. The five common themes, we just got into the first one. If you can't fix it, you don't fully own it. So people may not really think about that when they buy something until later, and we'll dig into that. That also could be on purpose. Locks are not just physical; they are software plus law. We'll dig into this. Repair markets keep prices honest, so that's buying brand new devices or software, but also refurbished or used devices or software. Repair has an effect on those markets, and one of the effects is reducing pricing. Restrictions so that's repair restrictions, are often hidden until after the purchase. When you actually try to do the repair, then your restrictions become apparent. And repair is resilience. How? It reduces cost. Repair also reduces waste. You don't have to throw away your device. You can repair it. You also have more autonomy as far as your independence. Whereas instead of being controlled by the manufacturer, and having this realization that you don't really have ownership, you're able to interact with other people in a aftermarket community.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is a pattern that we really see, just about everywhere. It's a way for companies to remain relevant by having to keep you coming back if you need to get something fixed, instead of, going to like your local shop and being able to get something repaired. But I definitely think I think our next slide probably dives a little more into that.
Before we go, though, I'd like to ask a question. Which of these lines do you think people underestimate the most when,
The hidden one, the restrictions are often hidden until after purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
Mhm.
Yeah. I would say for my end, I would say repair is resilience. Because if you can do it yourself, I mean that's half of the battle. If you don't have to pay somebody else to do it. I mean I'm a fan of DIY all
Yep.
day.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is the right to repair? It's access to parts, the tools, and the information. So manuals would be one kind of information, and diagnostics, some types. As far as diagnostic, what is that? That's going to be, possibly software that you need, that you use in order to find out what's wrong with the device or the other software, and then also what needs to be replaced. And we'll get into diagnostics, and software tools that do the diagnostic also can be kept from the open market from repair, and it's a tactic. The ability to replace parts without being locked out is also part of the right to repair. We're going to talk about this with this concept of parts pairing. And then you have permission to bypass digital locks for lawful repair. So there's a battle every now and then. It can be in different municipalities, states, and even on the federal level, to try to have exemptions to the digital locks, such as DCMA, which is, we'll get into, we have a slide on, but things that stop you or make it illegal to actually do repairs. You can get exemptions at these various different jurisdictions to be able to do the repair. And then you can't really have the right to repair without, counterintuitively, competition in the aftermarket space. This independent repair, the right for it to exist and the right for it to not have, you could call, antitrust type tactics leveled against it. So we'll dig into that on the coming slides.
Yeah. So but before we dive into that, I want to say that the right to repair is pretty much the four pillars of ownership: parts, tools, information, and permission. It's the ability to even like replace a screen or a battery without having to go through an authorized gatekeeper. With that, it kind of ends competition immediately after buying a product. To kind of put that into perspective.
Yeah, if you don't have the right to repair, then you're going to have, there's no competition, after you purchase, there's no aftermarket, market.
Mm-hmm.
here's these three levers of control that a builder, manufacturer can use to control repair. So the first one's design. You can design things to where they're more difficult to repair. How? You can have sealed devices, right? You can't replace the battery. You can't open it up. There's fragile assemblies. So fragile casing. So when you open it up, it breaks. There could be special tools. There could be special nuts and bolts, fasteners. You could have part pairing. What is that? This is when you have a part that needs to be replaced. But when you go into the aftermarket and you get that part and you apply it to the device, then the device either becomes disabled, bricked, which means that the device no longer works and will never work, or it just errors. An example of this, a famous example of this, is if you had an HP inkjet and you replace the cartridge, if you use an aftermarket part, then it can give you an error code and it won't work. So now that's the first one. That's design. Economics, parts pricing. So this is a funneling of the repair market into the replacement market. We'll talk more about this, but you can price the part, a replacement part, so high that it would be better to just replace the device. Then you can have warranties where the threat of the violation of the warranty creates a chilling effect. When you go to try to repair and you violate your warranty, you may turn around and say, I'd rather just replace, or I'd rather just not repair. And then there's also service capture. What is this? Where you have authorized service providers. So the service is basically monopolized. It's captured, and only they can do any service on the part. So that just drives up pricing. Now the third one, you have law, IP threats, intellectual property threats. We'll get into a slide on this, but basically making it to where it's ambiguous if you're violating the IP threat. The IP. Then you have contracts, so like your user agreement. And then you have anti-circumvention rules. So with anti-circumvention rules, like the DCMA, there's a component in the DCMA, we'll talk about this, but it's actually a criminal offense to do things to repair certain products. So you're violating the copyright, and it's not just you lost your warranty, it's a criminal, it's a federal offense. So what's the result? The repair becomes permissioned. You have to ask for approval. You have to ask for the keys through digital locks in order to do any of your repair, instead of it being based off of your skill and parts.
Yeah, I kind of see these the levers they're meant to work together, not separately. And then, it's like a control stack now from companies that create these products. And we are leaning towards instead of fixing things, you just replace it. We see this every day now, like even with cars, car companies just want you to lease the car and return it and get a new one every 4 years. And, get the new iPhone every year instead of just keeping it until it completely is unusable. I'm in the world of, I keep my phone until it just can't work anymore and I can't even fix it. I try to keep, some devices as long as possible.
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, back to the inkjet printer that you were talking about earlier, Watson. It kind of made me think about my fridge. So there is a water filter. I had a Samsung fridge, and there was a water filter inside of it. And I had actually tried to order a replacement for it off of Amazon. And then when I had put the filter in it, there was like a reset day on the actual filter thing, and it was saying I mean, it wasn't restarting back to the 60. It was still saying 0. And I was like, what the heck? What gives, right? And so I had ended up actually making a call directly to the company, and they were like, oh, well, you didn't buy one of our filters, right?
Exactly.
You must have gotten a counterfeit filter, because there's a sensor inside of the filter that tells them that, oh, this is a genuine filter. This one, although I personally think that the filter that I got off of Amazon is the same quality, but they said, nah, you got to use our filter
Yep.
in order to use it. So
parts pairing, that's what that is, on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get to our 4 counterintuitive truths from the book. Truth number 1, you can own an object, but rent the function. Number 2, repair barriers are a business model, not an accident. And you can kind of look at this also as the companies or manufacturers are incentivized to put in repair barriers if you don't want to critique the intent. And then truth number 3, the law itself can function as digital rights management. How? It creates a chilling effect. We'll get into all of these, of course. And then number 4, the repair is market structure. The capability of buying aftermarket parts, getting services from independent service providers. This is part of the market. We'll get into this. But again, this competition and the trust that is in the market, that's part of the market structure of repair. Number 1, ownership is not necessarily control. Ownership used to imply when you bought something, you owned it into perpetuity. You could do whatever you want with it. You could possess, use, fix, and resell it. But now it's conditional. How? For modern products, you have software, you have accounts in order to use the device. You also can have something that's a remote server. We'll get into it called server tethering. So you can have your device and you can have functionality on the device that is the core features are removed because of some action that you do. So in that sense, you're renting the functionality. The hardware can be fine, but the device still fails. And the repair now is a permissions problem. If you look at our previous reviews of books, a permissions problem, one way to think of it is you have to go to someone, I prefer to use the term issuer, someone that issues you a claim on the thing you think you own. You have to go to them to ask for permission to get to the value. Repair now becomes a permission problem. The manufacturer is the issuer of the claim that, oh, I want to repair. And they could say, no, you may not repair.
This one reminds me of my son had a cell phone from, I think it was Boost Mobile, and he was switching to Mint. And of course, it's locked to Boost. You know, we originally got the phone through Boost. Yeah. And like they said, they kept going back saying they were unlocking it, and we would never get the confirmation. Several calls with them, and it just got to the point where we're like, you know what, the phone's not even worth it. That's at this point. We just bought a new phone because we just got a cheap Android or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that I own this phone that's kind of useless. You can't really use it as a phone. Of course, you could, always just do Wi-Fi and have it as a smart device. But other than that, we own the phone, but it's kind of useless at this point. They still control it at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I never really liked the whole lock-in aspect. Like, especially when you're paying, these devices are getting more and more expensive, literally like by the year. And if you're paying $1,000 for something where you have to literally ask permission for the company, like after you're done paying it off, like, can you release me, please? That's kind of odd.
You think let's make it automatic, let's pay it off. I've done my time with your servers. Just automatically unlock it for me or do whatever you need to do so I can actually own my device.
Yep.
Right.
So here's the repair stack. It's a way to reason in layers about repair. Of course, you've got the parts at the top, physical devices, tools and replacement parts. We talked about this. Manuals, that's information. And the diagnostics, like we said earlier, the capability of knowing what is broken, the tools that allow you to do that. Firmware access, keys to be able to get in, digital keys. And then you have accounts. So maybe you no longer you have the physical device, but your account was, removed or whatever, and you can't get on the physical device. Remote servers, we could talk about server tethering. And then on the bottom, you have contracts, intellectual property, and the Digital Millennial Copyright Act, I think is what DCMA stands for. These rules at the very bottom, why is the layering important? The lower you go, especially the one on the bottom, they can revoke things above it. So if you violate the contract, doesn't matter that you have the other sides. Now you're doing something illegal, and so on and so forth. Also, like we talked about earlier, one, I guess, underestimated, layer is that accounts and remote servers, you could buy, a piece of equipment, and then later you want to repair it, you want to change it. Let's say it's the phone, and you want to, put a different SIM card or what have you, go with a different provider, and you find out, it's locked in some way, and you can't do that. And the remote server could very well be what stops you, or an account, these types of things. Now, the server tethering, we brought this up. This changes repair completely. This is more on the modern product side. Functions can be moved off device into the cloud. A great example of this is BMW. They actually, for a while, had the heated seats as a function that you had to rent monthly. They ended this, but because of the public backlash. But they had this. Mercedes has this on some things, for more sophisticated functionality. But the cars want that, and then let alone Tesla, like they can turn your car off remote.
Well, Tesla's also starting to do the whole, auto drive where you have to subscribe to, and it's almost the cost of like what some people pay a monthly car, note anyways.
Payment. Yep.
What's crazy is to have the functionality of something like a heated seat already in the vehicle. Like it's not a service that you have to get from somewhere else. Like you have it already built in, and you can't use it unless you've subscribed, is crazy.
Yep.
That's just what Tesla's doing. All these electric vehicles, it's the software's already there, the mechanics are already there. It's already in there. It's just a matter of, are you paying for it or not?
Yeah.
Yep. And like on this third bullet point with the Tesla, they can break your car remote.
Yeah.
Remotely.
So
a line between the actual device, the product, and the service is at this point blurred, because again, you're renting the function, and they can turn it off, and it could be, hopefully it's just heated seats and not the whole thing, but it could be the whole thing.
Yeah. I don't want to give any company a bright idea. I just hope that they don't start taxing us on air. Like we won't get fresh air in the vehicle unless we're paying the subscription.
Yeah.
Well, once upon a time, I read an article. The Nestle CEO at the time said, fresh, clean water is not a human right.
Oh, yeah.
He wanted to sell water, and it's like, it's a basic necessity to, of life.
That sounds pretty Orwellian.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I think they were trying to buy one of the Great Lakes, or they may have bought it.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So repair barriers are designed. This is counterintuitive truth number 2. So how are repair barriers? So things that restrict repair, how are they designed and why? Durable goods reduce replacement demand. So replacement of the device versus you repairing the device, right? So why does this even matter? If you have saturated market, so if everybody has a device, a phone that doesn't break in 2 years, and it doesn't have planned obsolescence in 2 years, whatever, it just lasts for a very long time. That creates a saturated market. Everyone already has the device. Now the manufacturer needs to, in order to make revenue, they need to control the repair market. So the aftermarket, you have the parts, you have the services for repairing. That becomes the profit center for the device, which could be a car, it could be whatever. So companies can steer you away from the independent repair, and they want you to go down authorized channels. So authorized service providers, where they control the pricing and the competition, and they can go ahead and collect revenue from there. We'll get into this repair loop in a couple slides from now, but this, which can explain this better.
Yeah. I mean, just looking at this, it kind of brings the sour thought to my mind that companies aren't trying as hard to make their stuff last long term. Like it's if you build something to quality that lasts too long, it's like you don't need them anymore.
Yeah, that's the point. That's a saturated market. So there's various ways to go to combat that for the manufacturer. They can make it to where you have to purpose planned obsolescence, you have to repair, and it's cheaper to replace. Or they can say, "Oh, it'll last forever," but any of the servicing will be in complete control. Either way.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to when you mentioned the car, and it's all for profit, right? They want you to go down their chain. Most people don't realize, like, car sales, they make no money off the actual car sale. They just want people to keep coming in for service. That's where they make all their money at car dealerships. It's all from the service department.
Mm-hmm.
So here we go into kind of the rationale of this repair replacement loop. And we just went through a book on systems theory, which talks about feedback loops. This is a feedback loop. We could do an analysis of it using that if we wanted to, but it's kind of easy to understand as is. If the manufacturer makes repair hard or costly, then fewer repairs happen. If fewer repairs happen, more replacements. So instead of repairing, you're buying new devices. More replacements happen. If more replacements happen, then there are more hardware sales for the manufacturer. And if there's more hardware sales, then they're incentivized to keep repair hard or make it harder than what it is. This is the loop. So you could say that the incentive structure is there, even if you were to say that the manufacturer doesn't purposefully try to do planned obsolescence, make repair hard, and all this other stuff. The incentive structure is there, and then only those manufacturers that basically obey the incentive structure and show a profit rise to the top, because this is where the profit could be. So this is a difficult thing to combat. Now let's talk about these design levers. These are the things that a manufacturer can purposefully do in order to make repair more costly. So having different types of sealed cases you can't get in, fragile assemblies. So once you try to disassemble it, it breaks. Special types of fasteners or screws. You need special tools in order to disassemble. Soldered parts. Why solder something when you don't need to? Glued batteries. Why is that there? Why isn't it just snap in and come out? Of course, we talked about part pairing. You get an aftermarket part, put it in, and it either breaks or errors out. This is non-compliance. And having to do all of this authentication and stuff for the parts. These are of the three levers, right? So you have economic, you have design, and you have law. This is one of the engineered ones for the hardware.
Yeah, the difficulty is not accidental. It's engineered to be difficult.
Yeah. I don't think that any of these are, designed to really protect us, the user, the people, the ones that are making these purchases. It's really about protecting their revenue stream at the end of the day.
Yep. And it's funny because this built-in plausible deniability on these. So they could say we needed to do it for whatever reason, just to save costs or whatever.
Like you said at the earlier today, you said you're a big DIY, right? Do it yourself. Mm-hmm. There's a huge majority of the population that aren't DIY. They don't want to do it themselves. But yeah, they're really making it difficult for the people who do want to tinker and fix and own their actual product from actually doing it. Because I've been in a position where I've taken something, I've got the back plate off and it totally broke on me, and now I'm like, now I got to order that part if it's available.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then of course, you're at the mercy of like the service costs. Whatever they want to charge, that's what you have to pay to get it done.
Yeah. If you have the authorized providers. Mm-hmm. So here's the economic levers. You can take a certain part that's prone to be, you could say, defective, or it just needs to be replaced early. And you could price it so high that it's more effective to replace the whole device. That's one technique. You can have limited access to the parts and tools, and the calibration. Calibration meaning when the software, for instance, that you would use in order, even when you buy the part, in order to make sure the part is actually working well with the device. You can make it to where these calibration pieces of software and tools are not available to the general public and only available to authorized service providers. So you're locking in that market. Of course, we talked about warranty threats. If you do repair, then you invalidate your warranty. Of course, this would be on the economic side because a warranty is something that would save you money if you need to activate it. Of course, and then also I just mentioned, but you have this authorized provider network where you can actually make it to where it's so difficult to become an authorized provider, you're creating scarcity there. And again, this is a funneling towards, instead of repair, funneling towards replacement. Of course, and then trade-in programs that favor replacement.
And we see the trade-in all the time now with cell phones. They don't want you to, trade in your old cell phone for a new one.
Yep.
I think that's probably one of the bigger ones of all the markets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So again, you have everything we're talking about within the design and economics, and then some things just seem apparent. Remember, there's antitrust law against some of these things, and so there is a CYA. There are plausible deniability stories, narratives that go above these. So safety and security, if you're going to manipulate this, it's dangerous. There's different parts. I want to say when I was a kid, you could replace, you can do you could you could replace your Freon, I think, on the vehicles, and other things, air conditioners, whatever. And I think now you have to be certified, I think, to replace Freon or something like that on different parts of the vehicle.
Vehicle you can still do. I've recharged my own car still, but I think
Okay.
it might be home. You might have to be
Yeah.
authorized. There's a lot
Yeah.
of them out there that it's hard to get the type of Freon to. That I think that I'm recalling correctly. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Something like that. I forget what it is. If it was Freon, and definitely on the home, there's some part where, you know, replacing all your air conditioner pieces and all this stuff, you end up having a problem. But just having it to where any of this, where you regulate it, and it's dangerous, I think, on some components, like how making it to where you have to dispose of it properly or what have you. So only authorized repairs, trustworthy, sometimes real, sometimes exaggerated. These are stories, these are narratives for really the plausible deniability for trying to make the repair difficult. Of course, you can look into what are the trade-offs and benefits and all this stuff, but you know, this is the narrative layer. So now, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, when you hit that thing, like, it's like, where's the line between, like, is it really safety or is it just them control? That's what you kind of, you can ask yourself. And I think a lot of it is leaning more towards control now. It's not just safety. They say it's safety, but it's more of a control thing. They just want you to, they make money off the service, right? Going through them.
So now, this is where the ambiguity really is a tool of the manufacturer that wants to reduce or restrict repair. So law can function like digital rights management. How? Through this chilling effect. IP threats can chill repair even without clear infringement. How is that the case? It's weird, but it may be the case that ambiguous intellectual property is more advantageous for the manufacturer because of this chilling effect, and then it will reduce repair or restrict repair. So big firms obviously can outspend people in court. And then you have anti-circumvention rules that ban bypassing digital locks. So this is DCMA. There's a clause within DCMA where if you do some type of reverse engineering over a digital lock that's on a device that you bought and you want to repair for whatever reason, but you think it's legal, it's not legal. It's actually a federal offense. It's criminal. So that would be an anti-circumvention rule. And the ambiguity around it is enough to create the chilling effect where people will refrain from entering into the repair market. So you just go to replacement. You'll replace a device. So maybe illegal becomes not worth it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like it becomes like a psychological barrier for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I mean, not just a psychological. This is literally a legal choke point, right? They're using patents, copyrights, and firmware and contracts. To essentially back up physical locks with legal risk. This is it's keeping you. It's keeping you from stepping out of bounds that they don't want you to, in regard to their intellectual property.
Yeah. So here's a little intellectual property toolbox and how it gets used. You have trade secrets. How's that affect you? The manuals for how to repair something and the schematics. Where's that chilling effect? Well, maybe you work at a company and you leave and say, this is how to repair. Oh, that's a trade secret. Maybe they can come after you. Chilling effect. Contracts, the user agreements and terms, of course, that's a staple. where you can have your device or your account removed and your device is no longer useful because you violated the EULA. PlayStation would be one where you should tread softly and carefully if you do anything that Sony does not like. Then you have, of course, the copyright on the firmware and tools, software copyright, these types of things. You can think of if you wanted to publish some software, even if it was open source or whatever, and you actually named it or used the trademark name or copyright or what have you, you may be in trouble just because of that, saying that you can use this to fix or repair some other device, and then someone can come through and say, no, you shouldn't be able to do that. So the result is repair becomes a permission problem. Remember, permission is when you have to go, you own something, you think you own it, and you have to go to the issuer for permission, the issuer of that claim for permission to get at the value.
You mentioned Sony was a big one, but I remember recently Nintendo is doing the same thing with the Switch 2. They're legally going after people who try to mod it.
Okay.
It's been kind of big from what I've read. I haven't read it too detailed into it. I just remember seeing those headlines of they're really cracking down on those modders for the devices. So
very interesting.
Now DCMA. You can get temporary exemptions to DCMA. So temporary exemptions to go through these digital locks. Of course, bypassing the locks, it can be illegal. And again, it's federal. But you can, you can get these exemptions, and these could go at the different municipalities. You can have, we've seen at the state level where people argue and they make a law to where people have the right to repair at the state level, lower than the state level, and then the federal level. But they're narrow and they're temporary, these little battles that are happening. And they don't automatically give you the parts, right? Because remember, the aftermarket parts may not be there because everyone's had the chilling effect applied. The tools, remember, diagnostics and calibration, you don't have it. And then the documentation, the manuals and all that. So exemptions aren't really a good solution without the rest. So that's where you have these repair barriers that often remain, even though you can have a victory with getting around the DCMA. Now, truth number 4, repairs the market structure. We've been touching on this. Repair depends on competitive parts and service markets. Why? After you purchase, you believe that you have the right to do your repair. You're going to have to, if you do have the right, you need to purchase some parts. And that, just that alone makes you a captive to the market. You're an owner of some device. If those aftermarket parts are all locked down because of whether the only people, they're very specialized, so only the manufacturer makes them, or only authorized providers can install them, again, the calibration, so on and so forth. The pricing there, if the manufacturer's business model is to go to funnel people into replacement and out of repair, the pricing can push you out. So restricting the repair can be, again, their business model, but it also can be what's called exclusionary conduct, which is part of antitrust. So this is one of the things that when people are trying to do legislation and trying to get the right to repair on the legal side, they'll call it exclusionary conduct. And then saying that if you want to be a good legislator, if you want to be a good representative, and you want to protect consumers, you can go down the route of saying, hey, some of these aftermarket practices, you want to lock them down and give the right to repair, and that would be consumer protection. So here's a diagram. You have captured repair on the right and open repair on the left. We talk about parts pairing on the captured repair and the authorization. So having to get permission in order to do any of the repair. You can have server tethering where your machine, where the device is turned off. The independent repair, so is blocked. You can have, if you have only authorized service providers that have the calibration tools, the diagnostics, or you could say if you're not an authorized service provider, you working on your own device, the thing that you bought, your warranties revoked. This is all captured repair. So if you do that and you have captured repair market, they're going to have fewer use options, and the manufacturer can actually increase, because there isn't a competitive market, that can increase replacement costs, increase by the cost of a brand new device. On the open repair side, the parts and tools are available, of course. You have independent repair. People can repair your device. You can have refurbished devices. You yourself can resell your device. Of course, and because of that, you're going to have more used options and lower new prices because people have refurbished market. It actually lowers the cost of the new devices because you reduce the demand. So now, hidden restrictions. This is when you purchase your device and you think you can repair. And so there isn't a good disclosure of what's restricted and what's not. People can assume that they repair, or people do assume that they can repair what they buy, and they don't know that there's restrictions on it. After you buy it, you have warranties, you have the parts aren't there, or again, you had the fragile assemblies, you have all kinds of other things. But the thing that we're talking about here is, if people knew how difficult it is to repair, they may not buy that particular product in the first place. You may have a new market for manufacturers who don't do these practices. And so they'll hide the restrictions, or they're incentivized to hide the restrictions. So you don't learn until later. If we do something like have labels and disclosure, that itself can move the market. You may think of, you go on Amazon and look at the reviews, and people can go in and talk about how difficult it is, that something is pretty flaky. They also can talk about that you can't repair a certain thing that is engineered not to be friendly to repairing.
Yeah, for me, the companies who, kind of do the hidden restrictions, it's just transparency failure for me. And yes, I would buy differently if I knew I couldn't fix something, since I'm a kind of do-it-yourself kind of guy myself. I would look at all the alternatives before I settled on, one that was restrictive. I was locked into it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And when I think about like cars, for example, like, when you get like a Honda or a Toyota, you can with confidence know that you'll probably be able to take this to just about any dealership and they'll be able to like fix the problem. But if you have a BMW, you need a specialized person to look at that. And not only is it going to be specialized, but those parts are going to be expensive, you know? So it's like when you're getting a vehicle or just any product up front, it would probably be in the best interest for them to like just tell you like, hey, if you do need to get repairs done, it's going to run you an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I had a friend that was a mechanic at a Lexus dealership back in the day, and he said people came in and traded their brand new Lexus after a year, almost, so often, like the percentage was so high. And I was like, why would they do that? And he was like, No one tells them how much it costs to maintain these cars. You know,
Mhm.
the oil filter itself is like $75, where, you know, your Chevrolet is like $5 at the time. So a lot of people don't realize, you know, you buy that luxury BMW, Lexus, it's going to cost you to maintain it, because they kind of lock it down to only go through them to do those maintenance and fixes.
There's
I
a
mean,
go ahead.
oh, I was saying it's an incredible market for the mechanics that do know how to work around those vehicles, though, because I mean, they can charge, you know, through the roof. But yeah, what were you saying, Watson?
Yeah, there's a saying in open source, an argument for open source, where they talk about cars. They'll say, would you buy a car where the hood was cemented shut?
I was going to mention something like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know, if I showed up at the car dealership and I couldn't open the hood, I'm not going to buy it. And I've
Right.
actually had a car salesman actually, I got out after a test drive. I started popping the hood. I started looking underneath the car. He was kind of like surprised. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, this is an expensive piece of equipment. I'm going to look at everything.
Right.
Because it's like,
No.
if I can't look and open and see everything, I'm probably not buying.
Right. Yeah, all the nooks and crannies.
Yeah, so that's the argument that the open source community uses on saying that closed source is a car with a hood cemented shut. So you have that argument there. Now we have our two checklists here. The buyer checklist, and then you have a maker checklist. And so we keep going back and forth when we're talking about who's incentivized to do what. So as a buyer, it's kind of straightforward. Can you open it with common tools? Are there parts available? So that's the aftermarket part of it. Then manuals, that's information. Diagnostics, we talked about what the diagnostic is, or what diagnostic tools would be. Do parts require part pairing and authorization? And what happens if the server shut down? Are you server tethered? This is a buyer's checklist. I think you could look at it two ways. So are you a manufacturer that wants to reduce or restrict repair? Then you're not going to want to do any of these things. If you want to showcase that you're a good part of the community, right to repair community, and you are someone that wants to be on the consumer side, and you're trying to showcase that you're more honest or whatever, and that's part of your positioning, then you probably want to do these things. And you can kind of think of these, you know, I think of them through software development side, open source side, but you can think about it for any type of device as a maker. So you design for disassembly. Right? When you can think of software, you're designing it to where it's maintainable, instead of the joke being job security, designing software to where no one can maintain it with you. You publish service docs and diagnostics. How would that be from the standpoint of software? Testing, unit tests and end-to-end tests, integration tests. You can have the documentation, the diagnostics, and you can publish those with your project, with your open source, and anyone can maintain it. Or, of course, you can publish the software and it's very hard to maintain. An example of that would be, I won't say that it is on purpose, but the original Netscape, when it was open sourced after they were losing the browser wars, it was open sourced as Mozilla was the name. And it was basically hard to maintain or impossible. And they just basically ended up rewriting the whole thing into Firefox, which you know of as Firefox now. So just because it's open source doesn't mean, right? And you can look at it as a device. Just because it's open, if you don't have the right diagnostics and it's not maintainable, then people aren't going to be able to repair it that well. Of course, avoid the unnecessary parts pairing. That just seems, I don't know when it's now. I'm sure it's necessary in some case, but I don't know whenever it's going to be necessary. And planned end of life think about, say, operating systems like Ubuntu. If you say we're no longer supporting this, we're no longer even making security patches for this, and you tell everybody when that's going to be, and then you give them plenty of time to upgrade. So that's a planning of end of life instead of, okay, oh, you all need to upgrade. We didn't give you any, forewarning. So, and we're going to charge you, that kind of thing.
And I do feel a lot of the open source, like especially the Linux distros, they do a pretty good job at outlining end of life, preparing you for that. And it's a lot of times, even after the end of life, there's someone that pops up, or even the maintainers themselves will extend it, with enough pressure, sometimes from companies or, the user base that I've seen. I know, like at a previous job, we ran Oracle, and like if you're using Oracle Cloud, you got free support for Oracle Linux 7 that was end of life recently. So it was kind of like a bonus. Use our cloud, you can continue support, for free. You don't have to pay for this, the support. So it's actually one of the plus things I've ever seen Oracle do.
Yeah.
But you also had to use their cloud, which they were probably overspending for that. That's a whole other discussion.
So some questions you can use to reason about, contemplate in your own life about right to repair. What's the most permissioned thing you own? I don't know, maybe my phone. The printer. It's probably that part pairing thing is the worst. What locks matter the most, as far as digital locks or other? So parts, info, software, the law. When you're thinking about and reasoning about the devices you think you own, what repair promise should be disclosed at purchase? This just seems nefarious. The whole hidden restrictions on repair. You kind of wish that, for me, there's a couple people I follow that talk about all of the different techniques that manufacturers use, vehicles, microwaves, anything, and they'll just go ahead and out them on one small little part that really is only $5 or something like that, and it makes it to where there's planned obsolescence and the whole thing breaks. That whole disclosure side, you're kind of playing with fire, as far as it would be one website that has everything, and then of course you could be sued for libel and all this other stuff or whatever. So that's where I wish, for me, the disclosure, I wish that would be kind of in one place that could not be censored, and of course make it to where people can push back, but that's kind of the disclosure in my mind. I wish that was a thing. And then what would a repair friendly product look like? To me, it's going to be something where there's a community of hobbyists probably that do repairs on that, and then then it's repair friendly. We got our conclusion here. The repair is part of real ownership, right? If you can't repair it, you don't really own it. You have the whole renting a function phenomenon. Repair is being blocked. The modern repair is being blocked by design, economics, and law. Hidden restrictions turn buyers into captives. When you bought something and you didn't even know what you're getting into, and so you actually try to repair, and then you saw the restrictions. The right to repair restores competition and autonomy. So independent services, repairs, even if you're not a do-it-yourselfer, having a market that is aftermarket, it's like services, an aftermarket service community that you can go to for repair, is beneficial to you and reduces prices. And so if given that there is a right to repair, you have less wastes, right? So again, you're not buying new phones and throwing them into a landfill. You're repairing them. You have lower costs because of the market. Like I said, if you have a aftermarket of refurbish, it reduces the replacement market. It reduces the cost of new devices, and you have more resilience. Right? So obviously, if you can repair something, then it's going to be more resilient than not. So,
Yep. Ownership without repair is just access with conditions. That's going to be my closing line.
mhm.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, also if you're selling a product that is environmentally friendly, and I mean, you have the ability to repair it going forward, I think it probably would justify a higher price tag on the front end, because you're standing behind a product that has longevity to it.
I'm the type of guy too, like I want to buy one dryer that lasts me my lifetime. I don't want to keep buying washer and dryers. Like make it
Yeah.
last. Like that's something that I just need, the one function of clean my clothes. I don't need it connected to the internet or anything special function, just a button that says clean. Make it simple. They put so much features and stuff in these things, and half the time I don't even think it does anything different a lot of the times.
Yeah. It's usually something that you don't need.
Yeah. I mean, I literally do the default setting on the washer and dryer now, and it's got like maybe 12 other settings, and I have no idea what they do. I don't think they do anything. One has a bedding setting. They show up clean, and it's no different from the default setting. I've done both just to see if there's a difference. I don't see a difference.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Mind games. All right. But yeah, guys. So I want to wrap it up with this. It's the one model, right? So every product is a system. You have to evaluate it based on its choke points. Can it be repaired without the original company's permission? So the one story is reinforcing loop of planned obsolescence. It's the story of how short-term profit incentives are used to systematically erode our long-term autonomy and create mountains of electronic waste. The one action is for everyone listening, tailored to what you're here for. If you're looking for an exit path from feeling captive, your next purchase is your first vote. Use the buyer checklist. Before you buy that next phone, laptop, or appliance, ask, can I open it with common tools? Are parts available? What happens if servers shut down? Choose the more repairable option, even if it's slightly less convenient. You're voting for a market where you have control. If you're here to build tools and systems for this new world, your action is to apply the maker checklist to your own projects. Are you designing for disassembly? Are you publishing your service docs? Are you avoiding unnecessary part pairing? For every project, ask yourself, am I building a sovereign tool for my users, or am I building another cage? The choice to design for repair is a choice to build for user sovereignty.
All right. I'd like to add that the companion links for the episode should be in the show notes. And if you have any feedback, just leave it in the comments. And don't forget to check out BitLemmas.com for more information and historical episodes. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.
Yep.
See you guys.